Let's get a bun.
Okay, so this is part two of episode 61. We've just had a short break. Nicholas hasn't returned yet from his short break. He's probably enjoying his fine Yorkshire beer that he was tapping into. So we're just going to carry on, hopefully sharing our very epic day in the Samuel Smith's Brewery in Tadcaster that Bruce and I visited back in June. So we just mentioned we'd seen the Shire horses. We'd been into the cooperage, which is on site there, and then went to have a quick look at the engine room where the boilers that create all the heat for the whole of the process that goes on in the brewery. And then I say we came out of the old brewery and then kind of came around the corner, and in front of us there was a very, very brand new looking building. Quite out of setting, really, wasn't it? You don't actually see it from the road, either from the front or the back. So again, if you're on YouTube,
this is one that keeps it all afloat, though, money-wise.
Absolutely, yeah. So again, if you're on YouTube, it's a picture on the right there, which is a very modern-looking building in kind of York stone. I don't think it's York stone; it's probably block made to look like York stone. But as you can see, there are quite a large mega unit, and as Bruce was mentioning, this is where they do all of their non-ales, so all the organic lagers that they brew. All of those other kind of the breadth of thing, Taddy Lager that they brew, and this is a very, very, very much a modern brew system, pretty much all computerized, and there were no people wandering this part of the brewery. It was all being done by computer. So yeah, so a little bit of a shock really, but I guess that's probably what keeps the brewery ticking over. Obviously, again, interesting to hear how much small pack, how much bottles and cans that they do as well. Particularly for their overseas market and in particular America. They do a lot of canning for America, and they do a lot of canning for America that you couldn't buy cans for in the UK. So that was quite interesting as well, and we'll perhaps come back to that in a while. They have got a well on site. We talked a little bit about the Tadcaster water. It was quite interesting that they talk, obviously the Burtonization is many breweries. What they do is they Burtonize their water. They whatever water source they've got, they try and add stuff to it to make it in line with the Burton type of water. He said that they didn't do that here. They had Tadcaster water. It was similar actually. The original well in 1758 is still the well they're using now. And in fact, he said that funny in Burton, some breweries try and Tadcaster their beers as well. So it's quite interesting. He got very technical then, didn't it? And some of the brewery people in the room, they kind of lost us a bit, Bruce, didn't they? So it was. And again, they actually use two wells. The other well outside, which you can see again if you're on YouTube on that top picture, that's the well that they use for lager. For some reason, they use different beers, but say that is still the original well. It's 85 foot deep, and that's the water. And they don't do anything to that water. They don't filter or anything. It just comes up ready to use in the brewery. And again, they were saying it's very much they feel that the essence of the brewery. It's very important to what they kind of do. So they mentioned Sam's is still very much a tower brewery, as in the kind of efficiency. So the raw product goes in at the top, and it basically uses gravity then to flow all the way down to the kind of cooperage, the barrelage on the bottom of the hill there. That street that you're looking at there, on the left is John Smith's.
Border Street.
Yeah, and on the right is Sam Smith. And as you can see, there are one or two bits and pieces, pipes and things that actually span across the buildings. And again, in the good old days, they do talk about the two Smith brothers firing rifles at each other across that street. But it's very amicable now, apparently. I think it sounds like the Heineken brewers. There's quite a lot of churn, and often they'll come over, and when they come along, they're always very welcome to have a look around Sam Smith's. They did say it's a very, very different process. I think they basically in John Smith's, bit like in Coors, etc. It's one big machine, one big computer brewery. They'll make lager, then they'll make John Smith's, then they'll make Heineken, then they'll make whatever it is, one after the other, Kronenberg. That's how it works. So So we went up lots of stairs, didn't we, Bruce? That was part of it, was going up some very little narrow stairs,
Lovely.
steps, all the way to the top of that brewery. We
Bonkers.
got to the top of the brewery. We started by looking at the mills. So they get their malt. It comes in from mainly the east of England. He was saying Yorkshire, Lincolnshire, that kind of area, and it gets shooted up to the top of that tower. And they have two very old mills, so old that they don't exist anymore. The company that make them, but they're
Super
thankfully,
reliable, though, aren't they?
yeah,
Super
thankfully
reliable.
they found somebody who used to work for Porteous in Hull, and he's still knocking about. So he comes and gives them a once over once a year. He said one is organic, didn't I think one he said is organically stamped so that they can do their organic beers. The other one will take any old crap. So they do have two, and they do have to keep those systems separate. He said to keep that organic status that as you go through there. So as you can see, this is very much the old traditional brewery. It's still very much as it was back in probably 1870, 1880. He did say not much has changed. A lot of the kind of wood and stuff inside the same. So from there, the malt grill, the milled malt comes down and it goes first of all into the mash tubs. And again, these again are I don't think these are quite the originals, but they are over 100 years old. Lots of copper, and this is where we start to get that kind of brewery smell for the first time. With kind of you can see there that hot water being sparged into the mash. And at this point, we also learned a little bit about Sam Smith. Sam Smith have another brewery. I think we
Yes.
didn't mention this, didn't we, in our last podcast? In that, because he kept talking about when they go to the brewery, and in fact, I think his society had actually been to. So down in Stamford in Lincolnshire, there is a brewery called, or was called, the Melbourne Brothers Brewery. Sam Smith bought them out, I think, in the 1970s. And they specialize in the fruit beers. They've always apparently done fruit beers down here at the All Saints Brewery, but they brew all the Sam Smith's fruit beer range as well, which is very interesting. And
Was.
there is actually a Sam Smith's pub on the site as well. So that's another, I guess, check to go and have a try and find that one, Bruce, next time we go there. There's a bit of
I
a
can't.
museum there.
I'm going to Stanford on
Yeah,
Friday, so I'll try and have a look.
yeah. It says
Yeah, I'm going on Friday.
there's a working museum, and again, it just said that there is a pub on site as well. So that will be very interesting. As we mentioned, I think in our last podcast, this was quite an informal tour. We had to parts of it, we got a bit bored. Don't know, I wandered up. So I found myself in the hop store at one point, which wasn't on the tour, but that was kind of tour it was. So these were the hop stores. So they've got some Goldings in there. They've got some Challenger, I think it says there. Something Form. And the hops were obviously there brought in to the brewery. They also talked about the picture on the right there. They kept discovering bits of the brewery that nobody knew about, and that lovely floor there, which again was all covered over at some point. Again, was discovered quite recently when they had to do some renovations. So quite a lot that coming through as well. I think the Bruce, the highlight, wasn't it? We mentioned this in our last
Oh yeah,
podcast.
it was astonishing.
Was the Yorkshire Squares. So
Incredible. Right.
this is was a very traditional way of finishing the beer in these very thick slate squares. Quite a few of the breweries do this. I know Thiessen still use it. And, obviously, people like Tetley's used to use them as well when they were going. So Sainsbury's have retained all of their Yorkshire Squares. This load here was nut brown ale. I think we mentioned that last time. This was all being brewed for the American market and was
In
going to be.
cans. It was going in cans, wasn't it? Astonishing. Not bottles, but cans.
So, and I say this was, I don't know how many, and there's been probably 10 of these very
Yeah.
quite large Yorkshire Squares, bubbling with beer. And again,
Yeah.
the head brew was telling us that this is all he does. He doesn't do anything else to it. He pretty much can walk in. He looks at the color of the yeast. He smells it. He looks how
Yeah.
it's doing, and he can pretty much say, right, that beer's ready, and it goes straight from here straight to into the barrel. So he said, no, we
Yeah.
don't do much else with it after this. There's some empty ones there because we thought, wow, this is fantastic. And then he said, oh, these are 10 here, but we've got about 80 of these. And he started opening
Yeah.
doors. And again, the one on that right hand side, that's the old brewery bitter one. He said, I think he
Incredible.
say that at the moment they're only brewing 3 days a week at the moment, whereas they would have
Yeah.
been 7 days a week, 30, 40 years ago. But they were
I have
literally
to remember
running.
that.
No, if they had all the pubs open, they'd be brewing 7 days a week now, Mike.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think you said they've got they say there's over 80 pubs closed now. So if they could get those open, obviously it would give them at least another day, possibly 2 days of brewing. That really is the tragedy of it all, wasn't it? When you saw the scale of the brewery and so little beer being produced, really, he's got to get those pubs open. He's got to get them open.
So very interesting. And then we ended up in the barrelage where that beer goes straight from those squares down a few pipes, again downhill. And this is where all those wooden barrels that are made by Sam Smiths are filled up and then put on the drays, either the horse or the lorry ones, and off it goes to the pubs. And as you can see there, the vast majority of their, I think virtually all their old brewery bitter, certainly the cask version, is still in the wood. And off that goes. And again, they must be one of the few brewers that still have it all in wood. I know one or two brewers do small ranges, don't they? So I say, all in all, a very, very interesting day out. I certainly recommend, if you're interested in brewery history, have a look at the British History Brewery. I'll put the contacts I think are on the slides at the end. And then we mentioned last time, we did then finish up. We did manage to get a couple of pints at the end. Unfortunately, not in the brewery, and not in the pub across the road from the brewery, which is the Howden Arms, and not in the former brewery tap, which is the Angel and White Horse.
White Horse.
Which looked like it was going to be reopened. I didn't mention it was being reopened. We walked past all of those, walked all the way up the high street, Tadcaster, over the river, up the hill, and to the Royal Oak, which is a cracking little pub on Wighill Lane.
Oh yeah,
but a fair trek from the brewery, unfortunately. But they were saying this is apparently is the unofficial brewery tap. Typical Sam Smith's, quite a nice little one. Apparently, this is 1901. This pub was built, and it's always been a Sam Smith's pub in Tadcaster. Actually, I don't think I'd been in this one before. I think I'd mainly been the ones on the high street previously.
On a winter's night on the lounge on the right hand side, they have a roaring fire. If you go in there, people ask us for the fire to shield them from it. It's so strong. Yeah, it's a good one of our little haunts. We love it in there. Yeah.
Well, I was linking back to one of our previous episodes, the Royal Oak, the third most popular name for a pub in the UK. Do we know the story about the Royal Oak, you guys? There's no pub was called the Royal Oak before 1651.
To do with the king, wasn't it?
Well, actually, and this pub actually has got the king's head there. Charles I, apparently, the Battle of Worcester, which he lost, he was trying to get away. So first of all, he went to a convent for a while and dressed up as a nun. But again, they kind of caught onto that. And as the Parliamentarian army were trying to find him, he climbed up an oak tree and they walked past him. So that's why, from 1651 onwards, the third most popular name for a pub in the UK is the Royal Oak, and it's the oak that King Charles I stayed in. So there we go. A little bit.
We had 3 Malton and Norton, didn't we? We had a Royal Oak in Norton, a Royal Oak in Malton, and a Royal Oak in Old Malton.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, 3. Yeah.
Hmm.
So we didn't drink a lot of beer that day, and we won't talk about missing buses and things and having to get an Uber all the way back to York. But apart from that, it was a thoroughly enjoyable day. Again, I don't think they do it that often. It's not a commercial element. You can't book to go on a brewery visit. I think 1 or 2 societies do get to go around it, so well worth it. So as I said, we are going to try and catch up in the next week or so and just do an episode where we'll look at the various trips that we've been on over the summer, because I think we've already done a couple of podcasts, I think, since probably May. And I say we'll just dip into some of our foreign travels for those that have been abroad, and then look forward to autumn, which again is probably, I always think, the best time in it for drinking the kind of pubs that we like the best. So, and we've certainly got to get a few trips planned. I might be back up in Yorkshire this weekend, depending on what my son does. I see he's currently set himself up there, I think, to keep himself out of having to sort out what he wants to do in his life, to be quite honest. But I know Nicholas has been whining and dining him in a few of the North Yorkshire's, East Yorkshire, actually. I think you were you're in Driffield.
The Spoons.
Wetherspoons.
125 for a Bells in Wetherspoons, 250 for a double, 199 for a Gone gin and tonic. Spot was packed with old folks. They were loving it.
Necking it down.
Yeah.
So yeah, so any plans? I guess Bruce, you're dry now because you've had a fair few drinks on the.
Yeah, like you say, I must admit we've had so much drinking. For the first ever time, we had a drinks package on the cruise, which was covered a night in Solihull, and Athens the beer was good, and then for I just feel as I need a break from it. Sadly, I've got to go to a wedding on Saturday. I mean, nephew's getting married, so yeah, I definitely just feel a bit jaded with beer presently. But yeah, we will have to stop. I am going to Stamford though in Lincolnshire on Friday because I promised one of my friends he's right into antiques. Stamford's supposed to be a wonderful Georgian town. I've never been.
Yeah, it is.
We're going to go to Peterborough, and on the way back, I understand there are 2 really good pubs in Peterborough, so we're going to check those out as well. So Stamford and Peterborough will be reporting from next time as well.
That's very. Oh, you're not far from Melton Mowbray either. When you go to Stamford, you're next door to Melton.
And I'm going to do that for another trip. Yeah, I'm going to do another trip as well. Yeah,
that'll be good. Yeah, no, the same. We were all inclusive on our holiday. So again, you can't not drink, can you really? Although it got a bit sameish, I've got to say.
Glossy lager.
Zythos.
Glossy lager, you like.
And then we came back, and I mentioned to Bruce, we were at a wedding last week, and unfortunately, it was a free bar all afternoon and all evening, and they had Shropshire Gold on cask. So yes, that got severely damaged, and then Jameson's as well, which when we couldn't get any more beer down as we moved on to Jameson's. The bill for that wedding was above £40,000. The groom's father told me.
Oh my God!
But it was a cracking. But when you go into a kind of we started in a little cottage. They had a marquee, and it was a big farmer's wedding. And we went to one of the cottages, and they had 2 barrels of cask in the back shed, which was just like champagne, champagne and everything else. But yeah, no, it was pretty good. It was pretty good. Nick, you also when are you next off?
Working all the way through. Big parade day on Sunday, so yeah, all the way through this week. Yeah.
Yes, I was on the cruise ship that we get drinks package, so we had the base drinks package. But the beer, they had about 15 or 16 different bottle beers on. They did have a Last Agui Newton's IPA, but mainly big beer brands, Miller Lite, all sorts of things. But rather bizarrely,
Newcastle Brown Ale, bros.
They did. They had
they always have Newcastle Brown Ale on. Yeah.
Newcastle Brown, but not Newcastle Brown Ale as you know it. It was only a couple of the bars. It tasted a bit like Watney's Party 7, as though someone had had a Marmite spoon and stirred it round. It was bloody awful.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I think the best thing was they were the best thing in the drinks package. You get anything up to $15. I mean, you had there's no malt, we get some fine blends, but yeah, and I say, but you can't do 15 drinks, a big range of cocktails. That's in Costa Crucial, they're all branded drinks.
Do they still do them in those aluminium bottles, Bruce? Last time I went,
no, but we did have.
They had Budweiser and Coors in the aluminium bottles. I don't know whether
they have the oil cans that you've talked about.
Oh yeah.
You saw the oil cans, but sadly they're not putting them on board there. Apparently, when they go from Greece, they're having to put on board.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Newcastle Brown Ale was extraordinary. I don't know how long it's been on the ship. It can't have been put on in Greece. It was bloody distant stuff ever. But still, yes, it was. I felt a need, yeah.
Very good.
Did go to Solihull, actually. We flew from Birmingham, had a night in Solihull the night before. Yeah, Solihull's a bit of a beer desert, but the Wetherspoon's actually really good because it's quite a posh place by West Midlands standards. And up at the edge of town, they've got a little area where Wetherspoons put loads of seating outside, and Turtle Bay put seating outside, and another like mock Wetherspoons pub out. And actually, the people at Solihull are quite posh. Made for quite a nice atmosphere, sat outside there. But then we did a look around, and Ben found a pub called the Tap and Tandoori, which is a pub that's been closed down, I believe, and has a selection of real ale and Indian street food on. And actually, it was a bit of a non-cheap in many ways, but a range of beers on, expensive beers. But we have to say they had some beer-battered onion barges. I think they were probably one of the nicest I've ever had in my life. Strange concoction, but surprisingly busy. But yeah, solid, a nice town, but I say a little bit of a beer desert. But the Spoons was actually certainly outdoors. Was quite good, really. Yeah.
So you got a free review of Solihull as well. So Bruce, very good. Right, gents. So we will hopefully catch up perhaps in a week or so's time. We might bang a couple of podcasts out because I've got some in the pipe ready to go. So we'll perhaps rejoin in a week or so's time and just catch up a bit more over the summer what we've been doing. And I say I've certainly got. We're going to talk a little bit about lager because I said some interesting news around that as well. And I've got a little tester for you. To think back to when we were the days of our youth and the various other brands apart from Skoll were knocking about as well. See how many you remember. And probably for us,
we have the Hansa,
Hansa Lager for us, wasn't it? Yeah, but we'll see.
Hansa Lager.
Okay. Right, let's play the funky music.